Republicans in Georgia are making a big push to pass an elections bill that would mean sweeping changes. What's included? The bill includes photo ID requirements for absentee ballots, restrictions on drop box locations, and limited voting hours on the weekends. The bill has already passed the Georgia House, but some argue it unfairly targets the Black community, and one state representative was not having it.
House Bill 531 is just another attempt to silence these voters, maintain minority rule, and that's just not democracy. We see your white supremacy. We will never get tired of fighting it. And most importantly, we will defeat it.
And with us now is Georgia Democratic State Representative Renitta Shannon. She represents District 84 in Decatur, just outside of Atlanta. Representative Shannon, thank you for being here. Some provisions in this new bill, they're eye-catching. Shorter early voting periods. Also, you can't maybe give food or water to people who are waiting in long lines. What's that about?
It's really about the fact that Republicans ran a committed white supremacist for president, elected him, that's Trump. And then when he failed to win re-election, they went after Black and brown voters who showed up and largely contributed to those wins. And so now we're seeing in Georgia that many of the provisions that Republicans themselves expanded previously for absentee voting and other voting processes, they now want to walk those provisions back and repeal them now that Black and brown voters have shown up in the largest way they've ever shown up in Georgia elections. So that's what we're dealing with.
Let me ask you about that charge, though, because that's a big charge to make, and a lot of people will probably take offense. Your state secretary of state, your governor, they got in the crosshairs of the president because they wouldn't go along with a lot of those ideas. So who exactly are you calling a white supremacist in that?
What I'm saying is that all Republicans contributed to this. That sounds like a large charge, but it's factual.
Right.
Even including the Secretary of State and Gabriel Sterling, these are the folks who were telling the big lie before the president was. They have been talking about voter fraud in elections and using that as a reason to pass voter suppression bill year after year. And I know this because since I was elected in 2017, I've served on the Governmental Affairs Committee, which deals with election law, and we've seen nothing but bills come through year after year that are meant to suppress the votes of Black and brown folks. You have to look no further than laws like exact match. There are so many things that Republicans have been doing as a group to suppress Black and brown voters in Georgia, and now it is something that everyone is paying attention to, but this didn't just start today.
I want to get your take on this because this is not just strictly in Georgia. This is a national movement right now to change some of the voting rules, and the U.S. Supreme Court recently heard a voting rights case. It comes out of Arizona, and Samuel Alito, he's part of the conservative majority. He said critics could challenge pretty much all voting rules out there. He said in part, quote, people who are poor and less well educated on balance probably will find it more difficult to comply with just about every voting rule than do people who are more affluent. Do you see that as right?
It's not right, and it doesn't have to be this way. There are policies that we can put in place to make sure that voting is inclusive and that the franchise is expanded for everyone. That is just not what Republicans want to do, and that's what we're pushing back on. I would add that many of the things that the Supreme Court is currently discussing right now in the Arizona case are included in the bill that we're discussing for Georgia, House Bill 531. So the provision about throwing out provisional ballots if someone turns up at the wrong precinct, that's in our bill as well. So as I said before, this is a well-coordinated effort by Republicans to make sure that it is harder to vote in states that they have had problems.
Georgia State Representative Renitta Shannon, not one to mince words. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your viewpoint with us.
Thank you for having me.